Hello, everybody. I am frustrated today because apparently YouTube just today, and Google, of course, changed everything. And I don't know if this news and views is actually even going to be going out. I've tried to figure out what's going on. I've sent Daniel help requests. I have not heard anything back. So I don't know if this is actually going to work. People in the chat room are saying that they can see and hear me, but cross your fingers. I don't know exactly what's going on here, and it's going to change everything for tomorrow's vid chat. I am planning to go ahead with the vid chat depending on if this works. So I'm waiting to hear from Daniel. Leave it to these people to add more work and more work to the process. Now, on top of that, I had intended to do a very, very different news and views. I had all of my articles that I was going to talk about. I was going to talk about Iran and China and Australia. And I had all these articles ready to go to talk about the news and views. And when I got into my inbox today and saw the articles in my inbox, I decided I'd better change this real fast because there's an interesting article that was sent to me by one of our members up in Canada. And this article is on the CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting Network. And it's an article by Sophia Harris. The article is titled, It's Crazy. Chase Bank forgiving all debt owed by its Canadian credit card customers. Let me read that one again. It's crazy. Chase Bank forgiving all debt owed by its Canadian credit card customers. So before we get into this, yes, we are going to have an attempt at a vid chat tomorrow night at 6:30. But because of all of the crap that YouTube has just done, and Google as well, to screw everything up, you may have to look around for it or just get on the YouTube and follow the feed on YouTube. That's all I can tell you, folks. I have not heard anything back from Daniel by way of help or how this is going to affect the website and so on and so forth. Anyway, so here we go. This article appeared just today. So in other words, this is, so to speak, hot off the press, okay? So here we go. Quote, Paul Adamson of Dundalk, Ontario, was thrilled to find out that Chase Bank is forgiving him the $1,645 debt he owed on his Amazon Rewards Visa card. And U.S.-based Chase Bank is forgiving all outstanding debt owed by users of its two Canadian credit cards, the Amazon Rewards Visa card and the Marriott Rewards Premier Visa. The bank retired both cards last year and said it's wiping out cardholders' debt to complete its exit from the Canadian credit card market. Affected customers can't believe their luck. I was sort of all over the moon last night with a smile on my face, said Douglas Turner of Cohill, Ontario, after learning he's off the hook for $6,157 still owing on his now defunct Amazon Visa. I couldn't believe it. After 13 years in the Canadian market, Chase decided to fold its two Visa cards in March of 1918. Now, I'm skipping several paragraphs here. And this is just unbelievable. Skipping several paragraphs. U.S.-based Chase Bank decided to fold its two Canadian credit cards in March of 2018. Now the firm is forgiving all outstanding debt owed by users of those cards. Christine Langlois of Montreal was also surprised by the news, especially considering that she stopped making regular payments on her Amazon Visa 5 years ago. It's kind of like I'm being rewarded for my irresponsibility. And I want you to remember those lines, folks, because they're crucial to the high octane speculation that I'm going to be advancing later. But one more time, it's kind of like I'm being rewarded for my irresponsibility, said the 24-year-old university student who's being forgiven a $1,300 debt. So now go all the way to the end of this article and listen to this, folks. Credit card rewards expert Patrick Sojka said that Chase likely concluded that debt forgiveness was ultimately cheaper than continuing to collect credit card payments in Canada. They're still probably paying taxes, paying accountants, and for them, they just probably worked it out and said, let's forgive the debt and fully get out of the country, unquote. But he's stumped as to why the bank didn't instead opt to sell the debt to a third-party debt collector, which would allow Chase to recoup some cash. It's definitely a head-scratcher for sure, said Sochka, founder of Rewards Canada, a site that tracks rewards programs. Chase told CBC News it chose the debt forgiveness route so that everyone benefited. Ultimately, we felt it was a better decision for all parties, particularly for our customers, spokesperson Maria Martinez said in an email. Turner said he's still confused why the bank would care about former customers in a country where it no longer offers credit cards. But he's not about to quibble with Chase's decision, unquote. So there you have it. Chase is saying they're getting out of the Canadian credit card market and forgiving everybody's debt because that makes everybody win, including their customers, but they're losing their customers in Canada, so that explanation, in other words, doesn't wash. So then you have the explanation about not being held liable for irresponsibility. Remember that line from that lady. And then the explanation was, well, it was just too costly to continue to service that debt, and it was more profitable to simply erase it. Now, folks, needless to say, I don't believe, and probably judging from the comments I'm seeing here in this new chat room thing on my new confusing YouTube feed, that there is something going on here, because most of us, myself included, doesn't believe for a moment that any bank is ever going to do anything in the name of the public good. Okay, particularly a large bank. All right, I have a lower opinion of them than I do snakes in a pig swallop. Okay, so what's going on? So here's my high octane speculation of the day. I think maybe, just possibly, if we walk right out to the end of the twig of speculation, if you look at the amount of debt and bad paper these banks themselves, with their irresponsibility, have created in the last 20 to 25 years, racking up credit default swaps and derivatives to the tune of about 14 to 17 quadrillion dollars, in excess, therefore, several times of the entire gross domestic product of the planet. And I've been arguing this case for some time. They've either got to do one of two things. They have to collateralize that debt and make that bad paper good. And that's what I think they're trying to do by going out into space and mining all those asteroids with all those resources. That's one way to balance the books. The other way is a debt forgiveness, a debt jubilee. And I've written about this in my book, Babylon's Banksters. Back in ancient Sumeria, there was a ceremony that was done about once every 50 years called the ceremony of the breaking of the tablets, because what happened in ancient Mesopotamia was that and please note this, as private debt accumulated, those debts began to be bought and sold just like today. And as a result of that, the debt and the principal and interest on the debt grew. And as it grew, people eventually started selling their children into slavery. And when that couldn't work, they simply abandoned their farms and left the country. And in order to bring people back, and that meant the economy started collapsing. So, in other words, in order to bring people back and get the economy going again, about once every 50 years, they had the ceremony of the breaking of the tablets, where the king would ceremoniously break a tablet of debt. And that ceremony was meant to cancel all public and private debts and hit the reset button, and everybody starts all over again. All right. So I'm thinking that with this little hint that it's becoming too expensive to service the debt, and the banks themselves being huge culprits in the financial mess with their own irresponsibility, buying and selling tranches of securities that were misrepresented and deliberately misrated by the ratings agencies. And I'm not saying that the ratings agencies did it on purpose. They're rating these things on the basis of information supplied to them by the brokerage houses and the banks. So in other words, if we're looking for culpability, we would have to put it with the brokerage houses and the banks that are selling and exchanging these bundles of securities, and then bundles of securities, and on it went until we get the derivatives situation that we have now. So I'm wondering if this is a beta test of rolling over debt and getting rid of it and somehow replacing the instruments that wrought up the debt with something else. I think there's more to this story, and we're not being told the whole picture. After all, folks, this is Chase Bank. And if ever there was a bank that has been subject to some suspicion about some of its practices, there were rumors, of course, back during the financial bailout period in 2008, that it was one of the banks engaged in the practice of so-called robo-signing. In other words, simply signing faulty mortgages without looking at them, and even opening fallacious accounts in their customers' names, and on it goes. So there were those allegations. So I suspect what we're Wells Fargo, somebody just mentioned in the chat room here. So I suspect we may be looking here potentially at a beta test on how do we do this? Well, to test the idea of a jubilee, you want to pick a fairly small market, relatively confined, and Canada seems made to order, and just see how it goes. And I suspect we might hear more and more stories like this. I think this is a beta test here, folks, for some sort of possible partial or complete debt jubilee. Time is going to tell. Now, we're going to figure out if this speculation has any traction if we start seeing other banks doing similar things, and in particular, pulling out of credit cards. That's going to be a huge clue as to what may be going on here. This may be, in other words, a part of a financial reset that they're going to slow roll, okay? They're going to walk this very slowly. But I think you might be looking at something very, very significant. All right. Now, that's it for the news and views, folks. Remember, I had just found out today that I have this new platform that I am totally unprepared to deal with. I am going to try and use this platform tomorrow for the members' vid chat. But if I am unable to, please keep watching the forum for a cancellation notice. I have no idea how to use this thing, but I am going to try and use it tomorrow for a vid chat. And I may just do something unusual. And if I'm not able to confine the vid chat to the members of the website only. I might just do one publicly to let everybody else know what goes on in these vid chats. I don't know, but I am planning to at least try and go through with it tomorrow. That'll be at 6:30 U.S. Central Time. As always, I will be there early in pre-chat. This has an automatic chat room in it, so I might just use this and follow the chat in the chat room. Anyway, folks, that's it for news and views. This is a huge story, in my opinion. They're trying to soft pedal this as simply a business decision on Chase's part. I think it's much more than that, but time will tell whether my speculation is correct or not. So that's it, folks, for today's news and views from the Nefarium. We will see you tomorrow. Cross your fingers. Bye-bye.